Good morning, everyone. So, as told earlier, today we will be learning about one dimensional motion with constant acceleration. This is a very important chapter because here you will be learning about the equations of motion and how do we imply them to solve our problems. So, first of all, the first thing which we come across in the title itself is constant acceleration. What does constant acceleration means? Constant acceleration means that the acceleration is not changing with time. There is a constant acceleration, be it 0 or be it any other number, there is a constant acceleration. So, the rate of change of velocity is constant. Either the velocity is increasing at a constant rate or it is decreasing at a constant rate or it remains the same. This can be, you have to now implement everything in a graph, and so if I draw a graph it will be better. Let this be the time, this be the acceleration, and this be the time, and this is the zero of the car. Suppose that a car is accelerating at 2 unit, let's say it is meter per second, and this is in second, meter per second square. Acceleration is always in meter per second square. So this is a constant acceleration graph. Okay, so you can see that this line is parallel to the time axis or the x-axis, and hence there is no change with time. At every interval of time the acceleration is the same. Now how do we frame it easily? Easy to understand is we mention the slope of the graph. This graph is a straight line and its slope is constant. Its slope is 0. The slope of this curve is 0. Why? Because slope is the angle which it makes with the x-axis. Since it is parallel to the x-axis, the slope of this curve is 0. Similarly, for the same body, if we draw a velocity versus time graph, time in second, velocity in meter per second, and this is 0 of the graph, we will see a straight line. Acceleration is positive 2 meter per second square and velocity is increasing at a straight line. So at every point of time the slope of this graph will be the same. So this angle, this angle, this angle, the angle which it makes, these are the same angles because acceleration is constant and hence the rate of change of velocity is also constant. Now what will happen if acceleration is 0? If acceleration is 0, then velocity will remain the same. Let me draw it in another graph. What if acceleration is 0? If acceleration is 0, then the velocity versus time graph will be this will now be a straight line. Okay, here also the angle is 0 but the angle is same at all points of intervals, so acceleration is constant. See, constant acceleration can be 0 or acceleration can be any other thing else than 0. If it is anything other else than 0, the angle of the graph will depend upon it, but if acceleration is 0, then the velocity versus time graph will be a straight line. Now once you have understood that what is meant by constant acceleration, we can now come to the equations of motion. See, most of you, I know you have already had some experience of equations of motion and people usually tend to mug them up. First thing and foremost thing, do not mug up physics. This is not something to learn by heart, to rot. You have to understand it. Rather, understand it. Okay. So now enough with all the words. Now we will be moving on to the equations of motion. And so the first thing which we come across is, how do we find acceleration? It is the rate of change of velocity. Now the simplest equation which you can frame is that if acceleration is constant over time, so a will be, what will be, final velocity minus initial velocity divided by time. See, you understand this, right? A car is moving at a constant acceleration. Okay, it moves from this point to this point, a to b, over a time t. It is moving at constant acceleration, so there is no change in acceleration. So at every interval of time the rate of change of velocity is constant, and hence we can very easily write that acceleration is final velocity v minus initial velocity u divided by time taken t. Okay, let me, in every line which we write, this will remain the same. V will be final velocity, u will be initial velocity, t will be time. We might be adding suffixes and prefixes before, but no need. We will keep this as constant. Okay, so please write this. V will be final velocity, u will be the initial velocity, and t will be time. And hence then we come to the first equation of motion, which we tell, if you rearrange these letters, what will come? You multiply it by t. No, not with red, let's write this with black itself. Therefore this can be written as at equals to v minus u, and if we rearrange this, we come to our first equation of motion, that is equals to v equals to u plus at. We will be naming it as equation number 1, v equal to u plus at. So for constant acceleration a, the final velocity is the sum of the initial velocity and acceleration multiplied by time. Okay, this is the meaning of this equation, v equal to u plus at. There is nothing to mug up. Acceleration is final velocity minus initial velocity divided by time. So just rearranging this equation, we get v equal to u plus at. This is applicable only for constant acceleration. Okay, now this was an easy one, and we'll remember it as equation number 1. We'll be using it afterwards, so we keep it as equation number 1. Now let's take another scenario in our minds. If I tell you that there is constant acceleration, and let's say that one body has traveled from let's say it has a 5 meter per second, and after accelerating at a constant rate, its velocity becomes 50 meter per second. Okay, so 5 meter per second is u, 50 meter per second is v. Now if I ask you what is the average velocity of this journey, since this is a constant acceleration, the average velocity can be written as v avg equals to v plus u divided by 2 for constant acceleration. This you have to keep in mind. This is for a specific time frame. Okay, suppose the time taken was t or anything, so the average velocity will always be the average of these two terms. This is the equation which you have to keep in mind. This is not very commonly asked to remember or written down, but this will actually form the basis of the other equations which we are going to study. So v average is the arithmetic mean of the initial and the final velocity. This is applicable only for constant acceleration. If you use it in any other problem, you will face greater problems, and it won't be the correct solution to the answer to the question. So what do we learn? If there is a constant acceleration for a given time frame, the average velocity is the arithmetic mean of the initial and the final velocity. Now, what do we know? This you keep in mind. This can be termed, let's term it as the second equation. Okay. So let's refresh our minds a bit. What was displacement? Displacement was velocity into time. This velocity is what? Average velocity, because the entire time frame we are taking. So this is VAVG multiplied by time. Let me write it a bit clear. You will be able to understand. VAVG multiplied by time. So let us now substitute the value of VAVG from equation 2 into equation into this line. From equation 2, S equals to V plus U divided by 2 into T. Okay. So once we have done this, this is also for constant acceleration. Now this can be written as, therefore taking the same equation, S equals, S equals to half into U plus, this is V plus U into T. From equation 1, what was equation 1? Come on, go back. Equation 1 was V equals to U plus AT. Isn't it so? So now we substitute that here. From equation 1, S equals to half into V equals to U plus AT plus U into T. Okay, so this V, we replaced it by U plus AT. This should not be difficult. You should be able to understand this. And then from here we can easily rearrange it. So S equals to this is creating problems. S equals to half into 2U plus AT into T. That is equals to, now we open the brackets. So U plus half AT square, UT plus half AT square. Okay, so what did we do here? We simply added the two U's together, this U and this U, and AT was left. So half of 2U comes U and AT is the same. Once we multiply it wholly, it becomes UT plus half AT square. So this is the third equation of motion. S equals to UT plus half AT square. So in this equation you can find the displacement without having to find the final velocity. Even without V you can find the displacement if there is a constant acceleration. Always remember this, the chapter is one dimensional motion with constant acceleration, and every time you have to remember this, that there is a constant acceleration. Now what about the fourth equation of motion? So we have understood that we are again using equation 2. From equation 2, what was equation 2? Equation 2 was that VAVG equals to V plus U divided by 2. Okay, and so S was VT, so it was half V plus U into T. Now again, if we substitute the value of T from the first equation, see what was from first equation? V equal to U plus AT. So T equals to V minus U by A. Okay, so see, this will be interesting. From equation 2 what did we get? S equals to half V plus U multiplied by T. Simple. S equals to Vt. I am writing that also before. S equals to V average multiplied by T. Therefore, S equals to, this was the value of V average and we multiplied it by T. From equation 1, what do we get? V equal to U plus AT. It is not. Let's write is U plus AT. So, T equals to V minus U by A. Now, substitute this value of T right into this equation. What do we get? We get S equals to half V plus U into V minus U divided by A. Isn't it so? This is T. So now remember the basic of algebra which you are taught. Half V square minus U square divided by A. Let me write the terms in between, since A square minus B square equals to A plus B multiplied by A minus B. This is a very basic thing. You have to know this. So, this can be rewritten as V square minus U square equals to 2AS, or we can rearrange it to write V square equals to U square plus 2AS. So here we can eliminate T, the time function, and still find out all the other variables if we have the correct information. So let us recap the 4 equations which we have learned. If we recap the 4 equations we have learned and we write them simultaneously one below another, the first equation which we found out, that was V equals to U plus AT. What is this? This equation is nothing but velocity as a function of time. Why do I write this? Velocity as a function of time. Because in this equation the entire value depends upon t. See, acceleration is constant. The initial velocity will also be constant, but time is something which is changing in this equation. Hence, velocity here is a function of time. Okay. Next equation, what did we get? This was number 1. Number 2, we got that S equals to half V plus U into T. What is this? Come on. In the similar way, you can write this as displacement as a function of velocity and time. Why do I write displacement as a function of velocity and time here? Because we have to find displacement. S is displacement, and here also velocity and time are changing. Why they are changing? Because velocity is changing because there is acceleration. There is a constant acceleration, and time is always changing. So this is the second equation. If we come to the third equation was S. Third equation was S equals to ut plus half at square. This equation you will be using a lot. I personally feel that equation number 3 is very important, because most of the time you need to find out the displacement and you are given only the acceleration and the time, and sometimes the initial velocity is 0 or the initial velocity is given. Okay. So what can we write this? This is written displacement. Again, displacement is found here. Displacement as a function of time. See, again, acceleration is constant here. There is no change, but only time changes. And initial velocity is also constant. No, not with green. Not with blue. We have to mark it with blue. u is constant, a is constant, time is changing, so displacement as a function of time. With as time changes, the displacement will also change. And the fourth equation was v squared equals to u squared plus 2as. This is also very important. This equation is also very nice. You will be using it a lot because time is not here. So in all the other equations, they were dependent on time. This is not dependent on time. So this is velocity as a function of what is the change, what is the only value which will change here? Displacement, right? Here acceleration is constant, just like other. Initial velocity is also constant. The only thing which changes is displacement. So these are the four equations of motion which you have to keep in mind. How you will keep them in mind? Just like I had derived them all, you will also derive them, and derive multiple times. Okay, you are sitting without doing nothing, you are not doing anything, or you have some free time, derive the equations multiple times. Okay, so anytime you get in the entire day, you derive the equations once, twice, thrice. The more you learn to derive the equations, the more easier you will be able to shift between the equations or use the values of equations and find the result. Nothing beats practice here. The more you derive, the more you will be able to learn, the more you will be able to understand. And these are the four equations of motion which we will be learning right now, and these can be interconnected or interchanged in order to find. Some problems will be there when you will have to use 2 or 3 or even 4 equations. No, not necessarily, not 4 equations are not needed, but you will be able to use all these equations once you are very thorough with them. You know at which situation to apply which equation. Okay, so actually you can let's take an example. See here, both equations 2 and 3, they are both finding out the same value of s. Let's use the values separately and see what answer do we get. Okay, so equation 2 and 3. What is equation 2? Let's go back. Equation 2 is half v plus s equal to half v plus u time. Equation 2 is s equals to half v plus u into t. Okay, and what is equation 3? Equation 3 is probably my personal favorite equation, ut plus half a t square. Okay, let's now put this equation to the lime water test. The question says that a car had a initial velocity of 5 meter per second. Final velocity was 50 meter per second, and the time taken was, let's say, 10 seconds. No need to complicate things. So now what you are asked to find out? You are asked to find s. Okay, you can stop the video right now and find the value of s using equation 2 itself, because equation 2 is itself sufficient, because we have both v, u and t here. It won't be a problem, but I want to also check equation 3 that whether it stands true or not. For that I have to find out acceleration first. So you can solve the problem and then wait for some time. So I am solving the problem now. So we know acceleration equals to v minus u by t. So acceleration will be 50 minus 5 divided by 10, that comes to 4.5 meter per second square. Okay, I found out acceleration. Now if I substitute this in equation 2, s equals to half v plus u into t, that is equals to half of 50 plus 5 into 10. that comes to 55 multiplied by 5, 275 meters. Not a bad distance, 275 meters. Now if I take equation 3, I didn't need it, but still I am taking s equals to ut plus half a t square. Here I don't need v, and acceleration I already found out. Acceleration was 4.5 meter per second square. So since a equals to 4.5 meter per second square, t equals to 10 seconds, u equals to 5 meter per second. Why I'm writing this? Because this equation is not needed in this problem, but still I'm showing it as a separate thing. So s equals to 5 into 10 plus half 4.5 into 10 square. Ut, this is ut and this is half at square. Okay, so what will be the answer? 50 plus half equals to 50 into 4.5. What will be this? Come on, you can, let me show you one thing. You can take 50 common and write 1 plus 4.5, that is equals to 50 into 5.5. okay, so what will this be? This will be 275 itself meter. So both the values have coming the same, whether we use equation 2 or equation 3. This is also 275 meter, and equation 3 also came 275 meter. But in order to use equation 3, I had to find out a first. You can negate that and you can find out the displacement s without using equation 3. I just showed you this to make you understand, yes, both are giving the same result. Okay, so you can use any of them based on what is given to you. So these are the 4 equations of motion which are very important, and this will actually form the base of this entire chapter. The next thing which we will be learning is what free fall. The next thing which we will be learning is about free fall, because there also the acceleration is constant, that is acceleration is equals to their g. The gravitational equations will come in part there, 9.8 meter per second square. So next thing which we will be learning is about free fall. So these are the 4 equations. You keep these in mind, you write them down and you practice them frequently. So the next thing which we will be learning is the free fall. Okay, so the next thing which we will be talking about is freely falling objects. Now, as I told earlier, in the chapter of one-dimensional motion with constant acceleration, freely falling objects also forms a part. Why this is so? This is because it is well known that in the absence of air resistance, any object falls upon, if they are dropped near the surface of the earth, they fall on the earth with the same acceleration, that is equals to g equals to 9.8 meter per second square. This is actually an approximate value which we are taking, and we usually use this value only in all the problems and sums which we will be doing. So whether it is a ball or it is a hammer, okay, so it doesn't matter, it will fall with the same acceleration in absence of air resistance. See, air resistance actually plays a great role in that. That is the reason if you do this experiment at your home, you won't be able to understand this, because air resistance will actually decrease the speed of the ball greater than the hammer. So why are we studying this together? Because we need to understand the effect of the gravitational acceleration on the objects. So first we will be knowing what is a freely falling object. So a freely falling object is any object moving freely under influence of gravity alone. Moving freely under influence of gravity alone. Okay, regardless of its initial motion, it is moving just under the influence of gravity. There is no other force which is acting on it. So objects which are thrown upwards or downwards and those that are released from rest are all moving freely under the influence of gravity. Okay, so any freely falling object will experience acceleration downwards regardless of its initial motion. So acceleration downwards. And what is the value of that acceleration? That acceleration, we take it as g equals to 9.8 meter per second square. Okay, so here I am telling you an approximate value that any object which is freely falling actually loses about 10 meter per second velocity in 1 second. Okay, this actually comes from this value of g itself. Since g is 9.8 meter per second square, in 1 second the acceleration, what will be the velocity change in 1 second? In each second the velocity change will be roughly about 9.8 meter per second, which comes to around 10. So when you are doing sums, you can keep in mind that the change of velocity is 10 meter per second approximately. Wait, let me write it here. Change in velocity is approximately 10 meter per second in 1 second. Okay, so now we know what is freely falling object. It is moving freely under the influence of gravity alone and the acceleration is always downwards, and we take it as 9.8 meter per second square. Now we will be actually seeing an example to understand it further. So let us suppose you are standing on top of a building. Okay, so this is the building and you are standing here. It is a flat building, it is an apartment, many floors high. You are standing on the roof. Okay, and now you have a ball in your hand, and now you throw this ball upwards. Okay, you threw the ball upwards with a velocity of, that is u of 20 meter per second. Remember, you always need to follow an axis. So how do you determine the axis here? As this is straight up, we take it as the y axis. Okay, so for y axis, which side did we take positive? So upwards will be positive and downwards will be negative. Okay, you follow a convention. This is a convention merely. You can also interchange the positive and negative parts in as you feel like, but for now we will be taking upwards as positive and downwards as negative. So what will be the path of the ball? You throw it up, the ball will rise to a certain point, and then suppose it misses the edge and it will fall downwards. Okay, suppose this is the level ground. So as we are understanding that the ball is moving downwards, so there will be points of time. Let us take the questions now. So from this you are asked to determine, erase this off, it will be easier. You are asked to determine time at which the ball reaches its maximum height, that is this. Time at which it reaches max height. This is a very interesting problem. This kind of problems are asked in every competitive exams as well. And then yes, we can determine the maximum height also, how much the ball will rise from your point. And then what will be the time at which the stone reaches the point from which it was thrown? So at what point of time the stone reaches this point? Okay, time at which stone reaches the point. I'm moving a bit down. Oh, let me zoom out a bit. It will help. From which it was thrown. Copy the questions. I will be erasing them soon. And number D, which will be what we can find out here. Okay, so we can find out that the velocity of the stone at this instant. Let's rename the points first. It will be easier then. Let this point be A. This will be B. This will be C. This is A. This is B. This is C. And another question which can be asked, that is also very interesting. So velocity and position of stone of ball at t equals to 5 seconds. Excuse me. Let that position be D. Okay. So now we are ready with our questions, and now we will be solving them one by one. See, I have tried to cover every type of questions which can come from this type of problem. I am not sure. I think I might have missed few parts, but I think this will cover most of the things for you. Okay. So now we come to the first question. I am not erasing the questions. I am moving down in order to calculate. So you do it side by side, or you come by question. Okay. So the first question, which is A, let me zoom in a bit and start drawing. So for A, what was our question? Our question was simple, and our question was time at which it reaches the maximum height. So what do you think, what will happen when it reaches the maximum height? Tell me. You threw it with a velocity of 20 meter per second. You stand on the roof of your building and you throw a ball upwards. What do you think, at what time will it reach the maximum height? What else things will be happening with the ball? So when it reaches maximum height, so let me actually make you understand. There is nothing to mug up. When the ball reaches the maximum height, velocity of the ball will be, you think you are throwing a ball upwards, the time at which it reaches the maximum height, the velocity will be 0. So the ball will stop at that point and then start coming downwards, isn't it so? So if the ball goes upwards and at maximum heights, its velocity will become 0, it won't climb any further, and then it will start falling. So which equation do we use here? Come on. We use u plus at, v equals to u plus at. Here what is v? V is final velocity. Final velocity is 0. What is acceleration? Come on, tell me what will be the direction of acceleration. See, we took upwards as positive and downwards as negative. So if we take upwards as positive and downwards as negative, the acceleration is always acting downwards. G equals to 9.8 meter per second square. The acceleration is acting downwards. Okay. So A will be minus 9.8 meter per second square. So we have u also. U is 20 meter per second. We only need to find out t. So the question asked what will be the time at which it will reach the maximum height. So substituting the equations, therefore 0 equals to 20 plus minus 9.8 into t, that is 9.8 t equals to 20, or t equals to 20 divided by 9.8, that comes to approximately 2.04 seconds. See, I told you that approximately the ball will lose 10 meter per second velocity per second. So initial velocity was 20 and it took about 2.04 seconds to lose the 20 meter per second velocity. So if we took it as 10, if we took the value of g as 10, it would have come 2 seconds only. Okay, so we are done here. The ball will reach the maximum height at 2.04 seconds. I'm sorry. At 2.04 seconds. So the first answer is 2.04 seconds. Okay, now next we are asked what is the maximum height. So maximum height, how you will calculate it? We know when the ball will reach maximum height. So at maximum height t will be 2.04 seconds, right? U is 20 meter per second, a is minus 9.8 meter per second square. What else do we need? We need nothing. We need to know the formula. We need s equals to ut plus half a t square, right? So just substitute the values. S equals to 20 into 2.04 plus half a is minus 9.8 into t square means 2.04 whole square. So it will take some calculations here. It will come around to 10 into 2.04 to come plus half minus 9.8 half. So it will come roughly around 20.4 only after all calculations, because 9.8 if we sum it by up to 10, it will come around 20.4. Okay, please do the calculations, and this will need a scientific calculator, I guess, because see 9.8 the value of g, this is only actually creating the confusion here. Okay, if we took it as 10, the sums would have been much easier, but I don't want to make you understand that we take the value of g as 10. We usually take it as 9.8 meter per second square, and this should be taken by every one of you. 10 is not an approximate value. Okay, so now we get this as somewhere around 20.04 or something, 20.4 meter. Time at which the stone reaches the point from which it was thrown. Now see, this is interesting. Now this is something what you will have to understand, that time at which the stone reaches the point from which it was thrown means the stone actually goes up. I'm zooming in on this part. The stone actually goes up and then again comes back to the same point. So what do we understand here? In this motion, what is the displacement in this motion? Displacement is 0. Actually the stone is going up and coming down in the same position. You are standing on the edge of the building. If we negate the small amount of displacement it might have got in the x-axis, we can fairly say that the entire motion is taking place in the y-axis only, right? So this displacement is how much? This displacement is 0. Okay, you understood now? If you don't understand, please write it in the comments. This concept is needed to be very clear. I told you, when a body starts from any position and it goes and makes a comeback to the same position, the displacement s is 0. See, here also the same thing is happening. The body is going upwards, the ball is going upwards and coming down, and it is coming to the same point. It reaches the point from which it was thrown. So s will be 0 here. Now if we go to the problem, what we will be finding? We will be finding in C that s is 0, a is minus 9.8 meter per second square, u is 20 meter per second. So what do we need here? We need nothing. Which equation? We need to find out time. So which equation connects s, a, u and t? the same equation, a is equals to ut plus half at square. So 0 equals to 20 into t plus half of a, half of minus 9.8 into t square. So what it is coming? It is coming 4.9 t square equals to 20t. If we take t common, this is actually a quadratic equation. This is a quadratic equation which are probably the most fun filled equations to solve. So I will be doing it in this way only. So it is 20t minus 4.9 t square equals to 0. You take a t common, then it comes 20 minus 4.9 t equals to 0. So a quadratic equation it is. Students, you must be familiar with quadratic equations. I am writing it down. I will be taking a class on them if I get some time. Okay, very fun filled and very interesting equations. So for this we see there can be two values. See, first value is if t equals to 0, the entire equation suffices. Again another value is somewhere around t equals to 4.9, not 4, it is coming around 5. So 4.08 seconds. Now why do we have two answers here? See, you don't first of all, okay, you don't think about quadratic equations right now. Why do we have two answers here? Because it is true, at t equals to 0 also the ball was in your hand, and after t equals to 4.08 seconds the ball again comes to the same position. The axis remains the same. So the ball goes upwards and it comes downwards and it reaches the same position. So there are two answers. There is nothing to get afraid of. This kind of motion will have two answers because the ball is at the same point at two intervals of time. At 0 seconds when the motion was beginning, and at another time frame when the ball went up and it reached the same place. So what will be the answer here? Time at which the stone, I wrote stone, sorry, it should have been the ball. I told you ball and I wrote stone. Reaches the point from which it was, here also I think I made a mistake, from which it was thrown. This will be 4.08 seconds. Okay, what will be the velocity of the ball at that instance? Come on. What will be the velocity of the ball? This is a simple one word answer. You don't need to put on any equations here. I will be showing you equations anyway, but you don't need any equations here. See. So we are asked to find out what will be the velocity of the ball at t equals to 4.08 seconds. We don't need to think about this. The ball went up with a velocity of 20 meter per second. It went and it came down and it reached the same position. So what will be the velocity? The velocity will be the same in the opposite direction, minus 20 meter per second. There is nothing to calculate about it. This actually follows the conservation of energy principle, which you are not familiar at this point, but some of you might have heard. So I am sending the ball up with a 20 meter per second speed and I am negating any air resistance. There is no friction, there is no air resistance. So the ball will come down and when it reaches the same point, it will have the same velocity of minus 20 meter per second. Okay. Another way in which we can do this is very easy. V equal to u plus at. So u was 20 meter per second plus a is minus 9.8. and t is 4.08. This will come as minus 20 meter per second. You can calculate it. There is nothing different. But why did I tell you this part? Because this is the easier way to calculate the velocity. In any question, if a body goes up with a speed and with a velocity, and when it comes down it reaches the same point, it will have the same velocity but in the opposite direction. Okay, so but you can also place it in the equation just like I've done here. You can place it in the equation and then calculate the value of v. at 4.08 seconds. Now, what is the next question which we had? Probably the last question. Yes, velocity and position of ball at t equals to 5 seconds. This is interesting. So, what do we have here now? Tell me how we will be proceeding with this. I am giving you some time. You think about it. You can pause the video as well, and then we will be proceeding. Okay. So let us consider that the ball was at some point E. This can be any point. Okay, E at t equals to 5 seconds. So this is point E. No, not E. D was already there. Sorry. So let us consider that the ball was at point D at 5 seconds. Okay. So what do we see here? That the stone falls from position B. We consider that the stone falls from position B here. Okay. So the stone is falling from position B and it will go downwards. Or we can also consider the stone falling from position C, but why I am taking B? Because at B the velocity was 0. The initial velocity was 0. So it will be easier to calculate. So if the initial velocity at B was 0 and if we take that as the beginning point, it will come down. Why I am taking the velocity B? Because from B actually the free fall starts. It starts from A, but from if we take a point of 0 velocity, it will be easier to calculate. Otherwise we always have to again take a U, take a T, and everything will be difficult. So let me start solving this, and I will be drawing diagrams in order to support this. So at point B, what was V? V equals to 0, and then it reaches point C at t equals to 4.08 seconds, and suppose it reaches point D at t equals to 5 seconds. So what will be the velocity and position? So velocity we can easily find out. For velocity we have v equals to u plus at, and this u is nothing but the v at point B. Okay, we know that the ball takes 5 seconds in order to come down. So what we can do here, we can actually negate the 2.08 seconds, 2.04 seconds it took to climb up. See, the journey actually started from this point. From this point it reaches here. Okay, and this time taken is 2.04 seconds. So what will be the t here? The t is already 0.24 seconds up here. So how we will calculate t here? We will calculate t here by subtracting 2.04 from 5. This is a bit complicated. You have to make it clear. First of all, you understand what is happening here. You are throwing the ball from point A. It is reaching its maximum height at point B, and then it is coming down to point C and then to D. Okay, how much time does it take to reach point B? It is t equal to 2.04 seconds. So now if I calculate for point D, v equals to u plus at, I will be getting that v equals to u is 0 plus a is minus 9.8 into t is 5 minus 2.04. Why I am taking 5 minus 2.04? Because in this 5 seconds 2.04 seconds are actually taken in order to reach point B itself. So I cannot take the entire 5 seconds in this point. So this will be the answer, and it will be coming around 29 minus 5 minus 2.04 3 2.982 918. It will be coming around 29 meter per second. Okay, why this is a sign of minus before it? Because it is coming in the downwards direction. We told you why upwards is positive, downwards is negative. So I think you understood this part. This part is very important here. Why it is taken 5 minus 2.04? Because we are calculating from point B with respect to point B. We could have calculated with respect to point C as well, but it would have been much difficult. Here the u becomes 0, and so we are calculating from point B. So in order to reach point B, 2.04 seconds are taken. So we are subtracting that 2.04 seconds from the 5 seconds of the question. Now we have found out the velocity, and now we need to find out the position of the object. So position, how do we find out? Position we find out using the my personal favorite equation. I must tell S equals to ut plus half at square. So what did we take here? What did we take here? We are taking here that u. Now this is again a question, at what point the u will become 0, the ut. Okay, so we can consider a different pair of position here. Okay, we are not taking b here, we are taking position c here in this question now. Okay, in order to find out the position. For the velocity we took with respect to b, and for the position this we are taking with respect to c. Okay, this will be interesting. So now what is the value of u at c? So at point of c t equals to, and u is minus 20 meter per second. The same u with which it went upwards, now it is coming downwards. So it is the value of velocity is minus 20 meter per second. So now what will be ut then? The ut will be minus 20 multiplied by 5 minus 4.08 seconds plus half into minus 9.8 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5 minus 4.08 whole square. Why did I write here minus 5 minus 4.08? Again the same concept, because the body takes 4.08 seconds to reach c. So if it takes that amount of time to reach c, I need to subtract that time. Okay, if I did it from b, I would have taken a longer time. I would have subtracted 2.04. now it is reaching c, I am subtracting 4.08. so solve this value for yourselves and you will get somewhere around minus 22.5 meters. Okay, so what will be 22.5 meters? 22.5 meters will be the position. So the position will be somewhere around here. The position will be very near to the ground. Okay, so d will be 22 minus 22.5. so for d the velocity will be minus 29 meter per second and the position s will be minus 22.5 meter. Okay, so we are very much done with this problem. This problem actually covered everything, and I know some of you might feel a bit confused, but don't get confused. Check for the questions yourself and try to solve them by yourselves. If you have any problem, do comment in the comment section below and I will see the problems, or you can also email me. So we are done with the free falling objects. Okay, I am scrolling down once again. You can take your screenshots anytime you want, or you can rewatch the videos in order to understand how did we proceed with each problem. See, these problems are easy. You need to actually, like I told in the previous part, you need to actually have a thorough going through. You need to understand what I am calculating and why I am calculating. Okay, so this is this part. And now finally I'll be showing a bit of how to kinematic equations derived from calculus. That will be a part for the +1 and +2 students, but you can also check them out. It's very easy. Calculus is nothing different. I'll be showing them now. So now I'm going for kinematics. Equations derived from calculus. Very interesting calculus, I must say. So now what do we take here? Okay, I'm approaching a very basic standpoint so that students who are not yet very much accustomed with calculus can also understand this. So I am taking two axes. one is the velocity axis upwards and one is the time axis this side. So let us say that a object has a velocity time graph of like this. Okay, so let this point be the t initial and let this point be t final. I'm not going for the part on that side. So what can I do here? I can actually divide this graph into many such time intervals. Okay, if I divide it, this might be shorter for you. You can divide them into more intervals if you want. There is no rule about dividing. So if I divide them into such short intervals, I can pretty much tell you that the motion of the body is actually a combination of all these velocity time graphs. Each of these can form them a single graph. So if I tell you that what is the total displacement of the body, how do we find displacement of the body? S equals to not ut plus half at square. Here we are considering a velocity, so it is vt, simply velocity into time. If the velocity is constant, velocity into time. You can actually take all these small portions, and if you continue dividing them, you can take actually each of them as a rectangle. Okay, each of the, see, like this, it like this part which has came a rectangle. If you go on dividing them into smaller divisions of time, they will actually ultimately form this rectangle type of intervals. So let me tell you that this is delta t, the time taken is delta t here. Okay, so why do I take it as delta t? I have told you delta t is a very small interval of time. Delta represents any change. So what will be the area of this particular curve? This particular curve, the area will be, let us take area A will be v multiplied by delta t. Okay, let this be any number. Let us tell that this is delta t subscript n. Okay, so delta t subscript n. Why we are taking this subscript? We are taking this subscript because there can be multiple, there are multiple delta t's. Any particular delta t, we take it as delta n, delta t subscript n. Okay, so now what will be the total displacement? If I ask you what will be the total displacement of the body, total displacement in the time interval tf minus ti. Okay, so the entire area of the curve will be what? It will be nothing but a summation of these small curves. So we will write it down as summation. This is the Greek letter epsilon which is used for summation. Okay, summation n, we miss the vector part because we are nothing without a vector. So vector v delta t n. Why did I write summation n? Because n can be any number of, if it would have been 5 segments, if it would have been 10 segments, then n would have been 10 and delta t, okay, 10. So any number of times you can divide the graph, and then summation of all will be the total displacement under the graph. Okay, so the area under the velocity time graph is the displacement, and so the summation of the individual areas of delta t will give the total displacement. Okay, v into delta t n. So now what will I do? That if I take each interval to be very small, just like if I tell that delta t n tends to 0, it is almost equal to 0 but not equal to 0, then it will actually form a definite integral. If I, then the same displacement will be limit delta t tends to 0 summation of v delta t n. V at the point n, sorry, I missed it here. It will be v at the point n because velocity is not the same at all positions of time. So vn delta tn, this can actually be written as from tf to ti v, sorry, v t dt. Okay, this is the sign of a definite integral. Tf till ti, it means that the value of t changes from tf till ti, and all the summations of all the little portions here will actually finally give out that vt dt. Okay, this will be the displacement s. So now you understand what is this equation. S equals to ti till tf vt dt. Why do I write vt dt? Because t is changing according to the graph. So now we are going on to the kinematic equations. This was actually necessary for us to understand that the area under the vt graph, any area it may say, this is the displacement of the body. This is necessary for you to understand. This will be easier and it will help to solve many problems. So what do we have when we go to the kinematic equations? First we can write that A is dv dt. We have already mentioned about that. So v equals to integral A dt plus c. This is the constant of integration. Once you integrate, you will get a constant of integration. Now at any point of time, let's say we can take a simple graph. Let's take a simple graph for you to understand. This is v, this is t, this is the 0 of the graph. Okay, so let this graph be like this, and so this is the area under the graph. This area under the graph will form the displacement. So let's take any point of time at t equals to 0. At t equals to 0, what will be the velocity? Velocity will be, so at a 0, so if we integrate a over 0, it will come the same. So if it integrate this over t, it will come as a t plus c. Okay, we are integrating it with the respect to t. So at v t equals to 0, t equals to 0, v equals to c. It will be only the constant of integration. Okay, now for any other equation you take a equation v equals to u plus a t. Now we know that v equals to ds dt or dx dt, anything you take. So what will be s? S will be integration v dt. So what will be the answer here? It will be integration of u plus at dt. So what will be I writing it here? I will be writing it as ut plus a into t square by 2 plus a constant integration c, that is equals to ut plus half a t square plus a constant of integration c. You need to have a constant of integration for every definite integral which you solve, and see we are actually getting the formula here. That's why I told you calculus is very easy, and it is most interesting to learn the equations of motion through calculus. I knew v equal to u plus at, and I just integrated that in order to find s, and upon integration I found out ut plus half at square plus c. See, it is very easy. So we are actually stopping at this point. We don't go beyond this and for our scope. So I gave you a little idea of calculus. This is actually nothing. In order to understand calculus, you need to study more. You need to understand it. But kinematic equations derived from calculus is actually easier, and it is very easy to understand. It is very easy to solve. Once you understand that the graph is divided into numerous small divisions of time, and the summation of all those velocity and time multiplications actually give out the total displacement, you are very much equipped in order to understand that if we take the time interval very close to 0, it actually comes at limit t tends delta t tends to 0, and integrating that upon the time interval, we are able to find out the other equations of motion. Okay, see, this v equals to at means nothing. It only means that v equal to u plus at. Here u is actually 0, so I took it as v equal to at plus c. C is a constant of integration. It can be 0, it can be 1, it can be anything. Where is the constant of integration actually plays part? The constant of integration actually plays part if you have a curve like this. See, this is velocity and this is time. There is even at time t equal to 0, there is a velocity, let's say c here already. So this is the constant of integration. Here v equals to u plus at. Here u is actually forming the constant of integration. Okay, u is nothing but the constant of integration every time. V is always v equals to at plus c. This c is what? This c is nothing but this initial velocity which was already there. So these are very interesting concepts. You can comment me down and I will be telling you where to read and how to read. So I am actually pretty much happy that I could take out calculus here. So what did we learn? We learned about the kinematics of one dimensional motion with constant acceleration. So what are the important things you have to study? You have to study the equations of motion, and by study I do not mean magab. You have to understand them. Okay, without understanding you will forget them within a few months, within a few days. In fact, you can get a little hint of calculus here, and a basic understanding of calculus is very necessary, and also trigonometry, please. Trigonometry, why? Because triangle is one of the basic geometric shapes which involves angles. It is actually the first closed shape which will involve angles. Once you know how to calculate the angles and from where you can take out the various relations of the angles, it is very important for right angle triangles in case of trigonometry. Please go through the basics of trigonometry and calculus if you can. Trigonometry you have to. Calculus is a question mark. You can and you cannot also. It is not very required. Okay. So equations of motion we have to understand. Then freely falling bodies. We understood freely falling bodies. Freely falling bodies, this might be a bit little difficult, but I am telling you it is nothing difficult. You just have to understand what is happening. For this reason you can stand on, you don't stand on the roof of your building, you take a ball from the edge of your table and you bounce it up, you throw it up and you see how it falls down. You will be understanding freely falling bodies very easily. So this is all about today's class. I was very happy I could take it. This is one of my favorite chapters. I have already told you so. If you have any doubts, please email me at basubiswas@gmail.com. And any students who are actually preparing for competitive exams like NTSC or KVPY, I can help you out a bit because I am an NTSC scholar of 2012 and I am KVPY SA fellow of 2015. Okay, you can check out my details in my YouTube about section, or you can actually follow me on Facebook. So this is all I have to say for you now. I will be meeting you in the next class. Okay, thank you.